middle-class teachers are spending tons of money out of their pockets to supplement the budgets that were cut so that they can buy supplies. And so many parents are having to outlay more and more money now for programs that were originally paid for by the school districts. And I'd also like to say, New Jersey has some of the best schools in the country. And this administration has done nothing but lambaste us and tell us what horrible schools we have. We have some failing schools, but the majority of our schools are wonderful and fantastic, and this school district has many of them. And I feel like you have alienated so many people with your rhetoric about how we are bilking this state of all this money. When I'm a taxpayer, and because of the budget cuts that you have implemented, I'm going to have a hard time paying my bills this year.
Well, a few things. First of all, I have not lambasted the public school system in the state of New Jersey. What I have lambasted, well, listen, let's start with this. I stood here and very respectfully listened to you. If what you want to do is put on a show and giggle every time I talk, well then I have no interest in answering your question. So if you'd like to conduct a respectful conversation, I'm happy to do it. If you don't, please go and sit down and I'll answer the next question. What's your choice?
Let's talk.
All right. First, the cuts that we made this year were the result of a loss of $1 billion in federal aid that was used as a one-time hit to artificially boost education funding in New Jersey. I didn't have that $1 billion to spend. President Obama spent it one time, and John Corzine spent it all in 1 year, in his re-election year. So I had a $1 billion hole to fill in the state education budget with declining state revenues. Despite that, I only cut $820 million from the budget, which means that we spent an additional $280 million in state tax funds on K-12 education, more than was spent by John Corzine in the year before. So this idea that somehow I cut the state support of K-12 education is wrong. We lost $1 billion in federal funding. Second, my lambasting and my rhetoric is directed very clearly at one set of people, and that is the leaders of the teachers union in the state of New Jersey. They were given an option in a time when everyone in this economy is suffering, when we have had people in the private sector who have been out of work for years and are continued to expect to be paying their property taxes or they will lose their homes. I asked teachers across the state of New Jersey to take a 1-year pay freeze and to contribute 1.5% of their salary towards their health benefits for those who didn't contribute already. The teachers union response was that this was the greatest assault on public education in the history of the state. Ask the people in the private sector in the state of New Jersey when the last time was they got a raise. Yet the average teacher contracts before I became governor had 4.9% annual increases in an era when we are at 0 or 1% inflation. Now that can't be justified any longer. Next, in the state of New Jersey, for everyone in this room, we're out of control. And if you look at it, the federal government for federal employees pays 66% of the cost of the health benefits for their employees. The state of New York pays 83% of the health costs for their employees. In the state of New Jersey, overall for all employees across the board, we pay 92% of the cost of the health insurance for every one of our public employees. And among teachers, the overwhelming majority of teachers in the state of New Jersey pay nothing towards their health insurance premiums for full family medical, dental, and vision coverage, and for benefits that do not just continue during employment, but if they stay employed long enough, for benefits that continue for life. Now listen, maybe those promises were appropriate to make decades ago. They are unaffordable now. And so my ask was a 1.5% contribution. And I was told that I was destroying public education in New Jersey to ask teachers to make that contribution, 1.5% of salary, which for the average teacher who makes $55,000 in New Jersey, you're talking about $750 a year for full family medical coverage. Now, my point to you is this. We have to get realistic about telling people the truth. If, in fact, the teachers' union had taken the one-year pay freeze and contributed 1.5% of the benefits, that would have saved in excess of $700 million this year. The total cuts were $820 million. So now we say to ourselves, who's really to blame for teachers having to pack up their boxes and not come back to school in September, the ones who were laid off? No. The teachers' union made a decision. They would rather stand by their current contracts and make no compromise despite our awful economic circumstances, and they allowed members to be laid off. There would not have been anywhere near the amount of layoffs if a pay freeze was taken. And instead,
school boards can't negotiate positions, and you should know that as an attorney. They can't. So even if a school district, even if the union accepted a pay freeze, the school board could turn around and say, we're still going to lay you off, and we're going to use that money somewhere else.
And guess what?
That's why so many districts didn't do it.
And guess what? That is not the truth at all. Okay, because the teachers' union from Trenton instructed locals not to take the pay freeze. And listen, in the end, school boards who got teachers who took a pay freeze, who then turned around and laid off teachers despite the pay freeze, would have been subjected to the same amount of public criticism as the teachers' union was subjected to for not taking the freeze at all, because nobody wanted teachers laid off. Not me, not the school boards, and not the teachers' union. The difference is that the teachers' union was unwilling to make the sacrifice that was necessary in order to avoid that problem. And let me say the last thing as the tone. You know, I'm very direct, and I'm going to say exactly what I think. And sometimes you can agree with it, and sometimes you'll disagree with it. That's who I am. But let me say this. I never stood up and prayed for the death of the president of the teachers' union. Yet, the head of the teachers' union in Bergen County sent out an email encouraging his members to pray for the death of the governor. And when I confronted the head of the teachers' union about that, I said this to her. If a member of my staff had sent an email, even in jest, about praying for the death of the head of the teachers' union, there would have rightfully been 5,000 teachers on the front steps of the State House demanding that I fire that person. And when I asked for the head of the teachers' union to demand the resignation of that leader, they said no. Well, let me tell you something. If anybody who worked for me demanded the death of a leader of an organization in this state and asked for people to pray for it, I would have sent that person out the door before those 5,000 people ever got on the front steps. Yet, that person is still the head of the Bergen County Education Association. So if you want to talk about tone and who's doing what to who in this argument, I think that's not useful. But
it goes both ways.
Well, let me tell you, you bet it does. Because you know what? If they're going to be out there praying for my death, then I'm going to say exactly what I think as well and not put any varnish on it either. So, wrap it